Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of our GCS Connect Leaders series. We've got Liz Fulham from TAMI in Dublin today. She's the CEO. I'm going to class her as a polymath, someone that seems very, very good at a wide range of business functions, as well as being a really nice lady to boot. So, this is a really interesting company that's taking on bigger players such as Zoom Info in the area of sales generation, market intelligence. But what I think is really good is about how she kind of set up her business in a really innovative way and how she's building really engaged teams and a very, very interesting product. So without further ado, here's Liz from TAMI. Thank you very much. Hi, Liz. How are you?
Really good, David. Thank you so much. Hope you're well.
I'm very well today in the office today. So exciting. We've just been trailing around the office trying to find a quiet spot today. So it's quite busy in the office even.
No, it's great to see we're all getting back to normal these days.
Yes, that's right. So hopefully, fingers crossed, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, welcome to the Connect Leaders series. Great to kind of have you here. Just for our listeners, we have Liz Fulham, the CEO of TAMI, or TAMI. I don't know. Were we saying TAMI or TAMI?
I just say TAMI. It is funny because people do say to us, if you go to a trade show, they go, "Oh, you're TAMI." It actually stands for Total Addressable Market Intel.
There we go. We're learning things already. And TAMI is a market intelligence sales generation tool, which has a lot of the basis of what you do in artificial intelligence and machine learning, I believe. So it's going to be a really interesting conversation, both in terms of your leadership, also in terms of some of the kind of real interesting and innovating things you're doing. And as a sales generation company ourselves, obviously it's something I'm quite kind of interested in. So yeah, great to speak to you. We're really excited to kind of have you on board. Obviously, TAMI is based in Dublin. I used to go out to Dublin quite a lot up to about 2 years ago. No, I haven't been there for ages, but I do hope to cross the Irish Sea again. Make a return. So yeah, be good. Obviously, Ireland has been even more heavily locked down than anywhere else, really, hasn't it? It's been quite tough for you guys.
It has and hasn't. The hybrid working is working really, really well in Ireland, and it's a small city. So, it's easy enough to get around, and people working from home. The good news is the nature of our products in the cloud, so it's very well adopted by our customers. So we didn't really have any impact on our services with our clients, but our staff are absolutely buzzing around the hybrid model. So we've embraced it, and they're loving it, and it's great because they're fully on board with it. So yeah, no, it's been good actually for us.
And do you have it hybrid, but everyone's kind of in the same country? I mean, we're working with quite a lot of companies where they, have people dotted around the continent, different time zones. How do you find it works best? Because we're a hybrid model, and I think we're finding things out about it as we kind of go along.
Well, a couple of things. We were already hybrid before COVID. Okay. And for example, our director of IT is based out of Belgium.
Okay.
So he was coming over once a month to see his team here in Dublin. And then it's interesting, we had staff who had to leave maybe due to, being foreign nationals, going back to their own country, whatever. But a lot of them didn't want to leave the company. So we actually, kept them working for us in their home country. Fantastic. So we've always had quite a hybrid model in anyway, because we actually find that's the way the world is already changing pre-COVID. Yeah. I think COVID just accelerated that, and especially for different parts of organizations that typically never had it before. So it's been interesting.
Yeah, so I think I do genuinely think that software engineering was kind of ahead of the game, wasn't it? And essentially the rest of the world has caught up now, particularly sales. But it is good to get people together, isn't it? And it is good to have people in the office. I find that there's a kind of about a third of people that are in the office all the time that like to be in the office. Is that what you find? Are you one of those people? Do you like to kind of be with people?
I have to be honest, I like the hybrid. Because as a CEO, you need some downtime and quiet time just for yourself, just to do your catch up, your planning, your strategy and that.
Yeah.
And I love being in the office to catch up with the team. But I do find it's the way living is going these days. A lot of people were in COVID and lockdown in apartments, and getting into the office was liberating for them.
Yeah.
Because you can't be sitting in a 2-bedroom apartment and maybe you're sharing with somebody else. and then you're kind of, where do you sit to do your work? So a lot of my staff actually said, hey, we're in apartments, we want to come to work. And then other members of staff that maybe are a later stage in their life with a family would say, hey, no, I'm happy working from home. I have a bigger house. I have a room. I can make it to an office. So a lot of it was lifestyle choice that people come into the office. And then some of it was, extroverts that prefer to be around people and were driving their partner nuts. So they were happy to come into the office and work and be loud and do all of this. I know
exactly.
I get jokes from some of the staff saying that their partners know exactly every sales pitch that they have. They've learned it by rote.
My kids say, "Why do you always shout at people?" And I'm like, I don't think I'm shouting. I'm trying to calm my voice down a little bit because I think my kids think I'm just shouting at everyone in a really angry way. I'm not trying. I'm not angry. I promise. But they were, Daddy, you always shout at people. So
It is funny like that, in fairness.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, but no, I think they know all my pitches now. They definitely know a lot more about what GCS does than the start of COVID, if you know what I mean. But on that subject, tell us a bit about TAMI. Tell us, the foundations of it. What the company is all about.
Yeah, so TAMI provides market intel. So it helps B2B companies identify their target addressable market, their TAM, and gives them intel on their competitors and what they're doing. And it
Okay.
also generates all the sales leads for their sales and marketing team. So why did I set it up? I used to be the European head of telesales in PayPal. And I remember going in, and inbound sales leads were very poor quality because PayPal had a very high market share, but the mid-market was still to be taken. And so the problem was maybe only 5% of your market comes inbound, because at the best of time for most B2B companies, they might say, God, I'm getting a lot of inbound, but you're only getting 5% of your market from our analysis working with big clients.
Yeah.
Because people don't ring you up unless they have a problem with their current provider, or unless they're a startup and they need to find some new tools. Typically, people are in situ with current service providers and they're happy. So it's up to us to reach out to them, to tell them, we're here, we could do a better job than our competitors. And by the way, this is what we can do better. So what I did is I set up TAMI, to give people access to the e-commerce market, because what I found was e-commerce is not available in any other tool in the world.
Yeah.
Every other tool is about contact data. E-commerce, it's just been growing exponentially over the last 20 years, and it exploded with COVID. And there's not one tool in the world outside of ours that can do, here's your e-commerce market, and we have a patent for that. So that was kind of critical. We got that, and we've always worked on e-com. And then we extended beyond e-com. So we have 123 million companies in the platform globally, and over 600 million plus contacts. So we tend to find companies come to us from ZoomInfo, for example, because ZoomInfo is brilliant in the States, but when you go into Europe or LATAM, it's really, really bad. The contact data is not there. So we're kind of a leader in the market when it comes to worldwide coverage.
Sure.
And hence we work with a lot of Fortune 500 companies.
But yeah, I found that ourselves. We GCS use ZoomInfo more in the US. So we're expanding more in the US, so it's kind of more useful, and we've got quite kind of mature databases. But I was just kind of interested there, so kind of, you mentioned e-commerce, and that was something you focused in. So could you just kind of just explain to me and maybe our listeners kind of what the difference is between kind of standard lead generation then and an e-commerce based lead generation?
Absolutely. So when you do standard lead generation, a lot of companies are just looking for contact titles. They know their persona. Right. And they'll say, well, in your case, it might be, I'm always selling to HR, or I'm always selling to talent recruiters. But when you're in the payment space or the shipping space or logistics or technology, think about payments. The big switch in payments was, like in the UK, 30% of all retail is done online. So the big thing for the PayPals and the Braintrees and Elevons of the world and others is, well, how do I find the websites that are taking payments online?
Right. Okay.
If 30%, like in the UK, over 700 billion is done through e-commerce these days. So it's a massive market, and yet nobody could tell them prior to us who was taking payments online.
Right. I see. So yeah. So for instance, if I'm a member of a local, village charity or something like that, and they take payments online, that I then PayPal or someone like that needs to speak to them, but it's very difficult to get that name from somewhere. is it?
Because
Yeah.
so if you look at all the charities in the UK,
Yeah.
their world dramatically changed with COVID because they were fundraising with, in the tin industry, outside shops and supermarkets, please give us your money.
Yeah.
And then with COVID, you had to keep 2 meters away from everybody. So no fundraising was being done on the high street. So that's a particular industry that had to embrace e-commerce and do funding online,
Yeah.
or
Okay.
have people do donations through mobile apps.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the thing about it is how does PayPal find all those charities that are now enabling online fundraising? And this is where TAMI comes in, because we can let them know, here's all the websites, this is the industries they're in, these are now taking payments. So it was really interesting because prior to COVID, everything was about retail online. With COVID, everything started moving online. Charities were taking payments online.
Yeah.
Debt collection was being done
Yeah.
online. Your insurance quotes were all being done online. Your
Yeah.
health insurance is done
Buying your
online.
cars being
You're
done
buying your cars
Yeah.
and online.
Yeah.
And like I had a laugh about it because when I was in the middle of COVID, I remember my daughter, we had somebody staying with us because we were having a house renovation. So we put my daughter on a waterbed and it blew up after about 3 months of usage. So we had to kind of order a bed, but we couldn't go into a store because they were all shut down.
Yeah.
So we ordered online, paid online. And then we needed other things done. So we were getting deliveries of furniture from Italian furniture delivered from Italy,
Yeah.
rugs delivered from Netherlands. We were getting
Fantastic.
beds delivered from Ireland. So the thing about it is e-commerce is affecting every aspect of our lives now. And more of our spend is being done through mobile apps or is being done online. And a huge amount of companies, especially in the financial services sector, shipping, logistics, they all want to know, are these taking payments online or shipping? And this is
Yeah.
our specialty. And this is something that we really are unique on. So we can do both outside of e-commerce, the standard contact data that all of our competitors are doing, but we also can allow people to drill down into their TAM, and
Yeah.
especially e-commerce or any kind of tech. We have it all there.
That's really, really interesting. And obviously you spoke there about being a member of kind of one of the leading kind of companies, obviously kind of PayPal and that sort of stuff, and then identifying this. You set out kind of on your own to start this. I guess this podcast is very much about kind of leadership, and part of that is like setting yourself up as a leader. So what gave you that courage to do that? What made you do it?
Actually, I probably would be the most accidental entrepreneur you're going to meet, because I actually didn't come into it because
that could be the title of your autobiography there.
The accidental entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Because actually, an advisor said to me yesterday, he advises a lot of CEOs, and he said, Liz, you're really unusual because you're not in it for what's in it for you. And I said, well, no, because my job is to help people. And what I realized was when I set the company up, it was because I've often worked for market leaders and top CEOs. Like I worked for the CEO of Virgin Media Ireland, of Microsoft Ireland, of Facebook Ireland. So when I was talking to these guys, they were saying, you should really set up your own company, Liz, and do this. So one of the CEOs dropped in and said, you should be doing this. You should be setting this up. And I said, well, what I really want to do with this company is help other businesses grow in terms of market share. And the big thing that drove me crazy and why I did it is because I saw salespeople and marketing people at war with each other. Salespeople were saying marketing are giving us really bad leads. Marketing people who have the budget and the money were saying we're spending all this money on leads and you guys don't close them. Yeah, and I realized there was this war internally inside many organizations between marketing and sales when these should be best friends. And I thought the best friends scenario, and I saw this conflict in so many companies, was where marketing actually get the right time and get the right data and send in the right quality leads. So for example, in our own platform today, and we do our own email marketing, our lead qualification rate on email campaigns is 87% lead qualified. Cool. Whereas if you do standard advertising and SEO, it's probably 40% because you're not controlling your audience as well. And so when you're B2B, if marketing can get really highly qualified leads specific to your TAM sent to salespeople, they'll bite the hand off you and think you're your new best friend. So that's, to me, I was trying to build the bridge between marketing and sales, and help marketing to fill the top of the funnel with quality and have salespeople hit their targets. But how many salespeople were fired because they didn't hit their targets consistently? because maybe the supply of leads coming in was inconsistent.
Yeah.
So if you can stabilize that and have a really good top of the funnel, really good supply of leads, salespeople will succeed and the company will be delighted and revenue is up and everybody is happy.
Everyone's happy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, what was kind of interesting for me there is obviously this kind of started with a real, a sense of purpose in mind, right? This is something we can do. Obviously you're going into a kind of new market, building something up, because I assume in this market there is an economy, you have to be big, you have to have a lot of data, I guess, to make it work, right? How do you go about it? I guess that was one of the first challenges, right? So kind of, how are we even going to have anything to sell?
Well, that was the thing. So I remember meeting Google twice, and Google said to me, "How did you do what you do?" Because we tried to do it ourselves. And I went, "Really? You're Google? I don't believe you. You curse, you did it.
Pay me 7 billion, I'll tell you."
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose I grossly underestimated the complexity of what we were building, because essentially what we have is a copy of the whole open internet. We have a copy of, all LinkedIn, everything available to us that's available through public sources and paid APIs. So we have all of this data. And I went and I met a friend of mine at Microsoft, and he said, "Well, how's TAMI doing?" And I said, "Remember when we were developing products and, I'm writing code and I'm developing a product and writing code on unstructured data on an ocean of the internet that's constantly changing. I don't have lovely tables in SQL that I'm working with. I have a vast ocean of unstructured data and I have to cleanse it. So I call the internet Azure. It's like rubbish data. It's awful. It's dirty. It's riddled with viruses. And then we use MongoDB, and I call that it's like a water machine. It filters good water, and the platform is to gold.
Okay.
So you actually have to filter a massive amount of horrible data, especially like if you're in Russia. The amount of viruses in Russia is unreal. And then, and you have China doing its own version of the internet by 2030, and it's really getting into lockdown and doing its own thing. So when you actually start to look at the internet, it is our world these days, but it's horrible. It's got you wouldn't believe how many websites claim Tim Cook as their CEO, or many well,
interestingly, he is actually the CEO of Engage, which is our group. So he is not the Apple one. He always has to say, but my boss is also Tim Cook. So
there you go. And so we just.
I guess that's quite a hard thing to work out, right? There's many. There's probably hundreds of Tim Cooks who are real CEOs, and how to kind of work that out as well. So
there's a big thing that Google launched about 3 years ago, which is a website secure HTTPS.
Yeah.
And it's based on their SSL cert. If you have a certificate of authentication on the website, I think Google didn't realize, but we were saying this to Google, half a million websites are using the same cert. So how do you authenticate them if they're all with the same cert? That's like 500,000 people with the same birth cert.
Wow.
How do you authenticate that person? So we were able to pick out all the fraud in the internet, in terms of this type of fraud, not complete everyone's fraud, but just certain types of fraud. So I grossly underestimated the scale of the problem we were tackling. The volume of data we're processing is in terabytes, and the speed at which we have to process it for our clients. But it's been interesting. It's been a great journey. Even in the first year, we were getting Fortune 500 companies signing up. We want to use your platform. And the renewal rate, we haven't lost any major company last year. They just keep renewing, which is amazing.
And forgive me asking this, you sound to me like you're a very good salesperson as well. Is that your background?
No. So when I was very young, when I was about 19, I was offered a sales job, and I thought it was the dirtiest job in the world because they all lie. And I said, I can't do sales because they're all lying. And I started doing finance. So I trained as accountant. And then after I finished that, I was very lucky to get into Microsoft, and I got trained up in lots of areas at Microsoft. They're an amazing company. So I got trained up in project management, Six Sigma, process management, program management. I did loads of things. So I became a troubleshooter. If there was a big problem, I was sent in to fix it.
Wow. Okay.
And
cool.
I remember going into Telefonica, working in the O2 operations in Dublin. And by the time I was finished, I was managing all change in Ireland except for online, but customer care chain, retail chain. I remember one time they said, let's take over HR and sort that out. And I was like, going, oh my God, I'm such a direct talker. I can't do HR. But then when I ended up running a sales team. I was European head of telesales and PayPal, and I really loved it because I then realized sales is about solving problems for my customers. It's helping them. And when I realized that's what I was doing, I began to love it. I began to go, sales is amazing. But I think it's
really
important.
good. The great salespeople don't lie, do they? You know,
that's the point.
You know, the great salespeople. You know,
they educate.
Yeah.
To be honest, with my clients, and I think of them more like my friends. You're there to help them.
Yeah.
So the bad salespeople do the sale and walk away and forget about them. The good salesperson takes them on a journey and sets them up with a customer success manager and keeps tabs with the customer success manager of how that customer is doing.
Yeah.
Because they know that there's potential for account expansion and upsell, and they're always trying to help their client. But equally, I've seen very good salespeople just say it's not a good fit for you because what you're looking for is too niche.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And the reason I asked that question is I was quite kind of interested in terms of, you know, you as the CEO, you know, how much you get involved with the customers, because it sounds to me like you kind of know your customers well, and maybe you're involved in the solutions and that sort of thing. And obviously TAMI is quite a large organization, right? So, you know, you could kind of take that step back, and I'm sure you've got a sales team yourself, you know, so obviously you very much use TAMI. So, you know, what's your, you know, how do you go about that kind of getting involved with customers? Because it sounds like you know your customers well.
Yeah, you see, I love innovating. So the reason why I was a troubleshooter and a problem solver is because I'm an innovator at heart.
Sure.
So, and I think you can't innovate if you don't talk to customers.
No.
So, and that's the key thing. So if you're a CEO that wants to step back and delegate and let everyone else do the work, you've already taken the first step to being out of touch.
Yeah.
And it's dangerous because you're going to be left behind. Whereas when you're the CEO that's totally customer focused, getting on calls with your sales team, helping them close the sales, getting on calls with customers, listening to the pain points they're having and working it through, you're now embedded with the market, you're embedded with your customers, you're embedded with your staff solving problems, innovating and creating. The only thing you have to do is make sure what you create is for the consumption by many, not just to be consumed by one. It has to be adopted by everybody. And I have to say that's the favorite part of my job is actually listening to customers. And even when they complain, I love when they complain because they're nice people sharing a pain point.
Yeah, that's right. You've got to identify the need and give the solution, haven't you? Really. So the need comes in, like you said. Those are inbound calls, there, Liz, aren't they? You know, inbound marketing. I've never looked at a complaint as an inbound sales opportunity, I guess, but that's one thing we can kind of learn.
Like I always say, the mistakes you make are your life experiences. You'll always remember your mistakes. They become your life, and that becomes the precedent for how you create things in the future. Whereas if you sit back and go, well, like we got 40 odd reviews in less than 2 weeks for saying the platform's amazing. But there was a few threads of things that weren't great. You know, one guy wanted a map of all the businesses around London so that he could use this on his app. We don't have that today. We have all the businesses in London, but we don't have a pop-up app with, you know, you're based here in Blackburn, therefore I need you to do this. So for me, that's an innovation opportunity. And who would I give that to? How can I solve that pain point for him? And is it a pain point lots of people share? So yeah, I love customers. I love selling. I do have tremendous fun, and I love developing and innovating. So it's like a triangle. It's a great place to be.
Brilliant. So kind of going forward within the year now, what are your main priorities as we look to kind of, let's say, get out of this COVID world and move forward?
Well, for a lot of it is obviously hit our sales targets. We've grown our sales year on year, so we did really well during COVID. The next thing would be hire a lot of salespeople and hire really marketing people. But the one thing I learned was when you're a CEO, always hire somebody better than you, without a doubt. Because we had a great example yesterday where an expert in marketing was giving me some advice on hiring. And I said, well, tell me how I'm doing on the competencies. So he scored me on my competencies relevant to the role. And I said, so we have to hire somebody better than that. So he goes, you want somebody better than you at marketing? I said, well, yeah, they're going to go to college and do marketing, get a master's in marketing, 10 years in marketing. If I can do a better job than them, then they're not good at marketing because my background is not marketing. So I said, they have to be better than me because this should be their deep expertise. And I want somebody really strong in that area. So I think the challenge is for a leader is be humble enough to accept your weakness, but celebrate the strengths of others. And if somebody else is better than you, awesome. Because you can really delegate to them and let them do that work rather than you watching over them to see how they're doing it well. Because I think as a leader, you should try exit yourself out of these things. Because if they're really good at what they do, then you're in their way.
That's
Whereas, and therefore I love to hire people better than me. And my challenge is to hire a number of key roles this year, people better than me. And with your help of your team, and I have to say, Craig is outstanding in your Irish team. I want to hire a lot more salespeople with you guys as well.
Brilliant. And I guess that's some of the, something you have to kind of watch out for. That I do, when you get involved with the customer and you're kind of customer facing, you kind of strike that balance between being involved and taking over. I find that sometimes, that once I'm in. I'm like in 100%. I kind of move everyone out of the way and say, right, I'm doing this, which obviously isn't great, and you've got great people around you that you could probably do a better job than you.
Well, that's the thing. I was lucky to be trained in project management and Six Sigma. So what I actually do is train my guys how to use some simple tools like RAID logs, risk, actions, issues, decisions. Give them templates, because I find if you give staff templates to execute against. So for example, I was working on a major product with a customer. The customer asked us to develop a key product for them, which is an amazing product. We launched it last year. But the interesting thing is how to manage that customer engagement. Like, I'm qualified in all these areas. I could take it over. But what I didn't do that because I trained the people on the team. And I said, right, you're the project lead for this, and you're doing this, and you're doing this, and this is the RACI, this is the RAID. Fill these in. Everybody knows what. Put the stakeholder meetings in, and now run it properly like a project. And I trained them all on it, which meant that I didn't have to be on every call every week. And I just would have a one-on-one with the lead and sit down and say, where are we at? Show me the RAID. Where's the issues at? Where's the actions at? And then suddenly everybody was up to date. And what was interesting was using a RAID template, which I can send on to you for your audience, meant that the problem when you step in as a CEO with a customer is we end up taking lots of action items on rather than the staff. And the customer doesn't tend to have a lot of action items. Whereas when we were developing this product, this RAID log gave loads of action items to the customer, loads of action items to us. The CEO could step out of it. And then every week we saw our company progressing all of our action items, but the customer didn't. The customer didn't complain that it didn't deliver on time in the same way, because we're able to explain, well, the RAID says you're overdue in 4 weeks on that action item.
Send us this data and that sort of thing.
So I do think that having these techniques around change management, problem solving, templates, train your own staff up, means that we as CEOs can step back when we train them up.
And therefore go into each challenge with a kind of similar methodology,
Correct.
You look at things in a similar way.
And the customer success team have come back to me because they were never used to any of this. And customer success came back to me and they actually said, it's amazing. We agree. We love this. We can use this on every one of our customer calls when we're solving problems for them or when we're implementing some change for them, etc. And Dev was the same. If you're working with Dev, you need all of this as well. So I find there's a bridge you can build rather than just being a person trying to do everything yourself and getting burnt out. You can build that bridge with these techniques and these processes. Because honestly, from my experience, you cannot scale unless you have processes. You can't scale unless you have roles of definition. You can't scale unless you know all the inputs and outputs of each area and how they hand off to each other. So that's really important for me.
Brilliant. And talking about the development side, I thought one of the things when we were speaking earlier, obviously the way you've built your team and tackled those skill shortages within engineering was very innovative. Obviously, you talked about yourself as an innovator. So can you just again take our listeners through a little bit about how you've built a really strong sales team in such a competitive market such as Dublin?
So I'll do it on the tech side first. So the one problem is Dublin has all the biggest players in the world here. And they're all consuming, like if you get a job in Google, you're on 150 grand as a senior dev. currently, as a small company in that regard, we can't play with the big guys like that.
Mm.
What we found was that Brazil has a massive talented software development
Mm.
group of people. There's tens of thousands of really brilliant software developers in Brazil, and they have a backdoor into Europe through their Italian lineage. So if
Yeah,
you've got Italian grandparents, you can get a passport to work and live in Europe.
sure.
So that way, we ended up hiring a very strong Brazilian dev team. But
Mm.
one of the things that struck us is that when we have a lot of nationalities from abroad,
Mm.
the problem is they need to get home for their mental health. It's not just about physical well-being. And we often forget that. So what we
Yeah,
did is we agreed to pay for each of our devs from Brazil to go home once a year for a month. We
sure.
pay for the flights, and what we do as part of the contract is they can work from home up to 2 weeks, and then they can also take holidays for 2 weeks. So, for example, next month, one of our dev is flying back to Brazil for a month, and we've looked after him.
Wow. Yeah, and that must really foster that kind of, obviously we talked about hybrid before, but the sense of team that you have.
Yeah, and they're amazing. We don't get anybody leaving the dev team. You know,
Mm.
th- there's a couple of things I have to give credit to the director of IT. He's just like a child genius. He's only early 30s, but he fosters such a great culture of coaching.
Right.
So you'll never hear him give out to the dev. He's never cross with them. He's so patient. He's a
Mm.
brilliant coder himself. He loves coding. So
Yeah.
he goes into certain blackout periods where he'll just code because he loves coding, but then he comes back up and spends a huge amount of time coaching everybody on the team. They do a stand up every day. And if they're struggling, he'll step in and help and advise, and he'll go through their code. He does peer review code with them, everything. So I think, to be fair to him, it's him that's brilliant because of his patience and
Mm.
his understanding and the fact that he's a brilliant coder himself. The dev guys trust him, and they never, and actually they'll tell me, I never, it's him they don't want to leave. So it's
Yeah.
not the company, it's actually him. And
Yeah.
the old saying is, you join a company and leave a manager. Nobody
Yeah.
wants to leave this guy because he's just so
Fantastic.
patient. He's such a brilliant coder,
Mm.
and he supports this whole hybrid. He'll ring me up and say, look, he can't come in today. I recommend we do this and this. He's such a kind guy, but
Yeah.
brilliant at his work.
Fantastic. So this is an example of hiring people that
Better.
are the better than you around you,
Yes.
and
Yes.
hopefully, and then looking after them, I guess, isn't it, as well? So kind of giving them opportunities to move forward, even at a young age, like you said, director of IT at 30 is pretty going some, isn't it?
Well, I tell you, the funny story behind him was I met his wife one day, who's a book restorer. She's an artist in
Mm.
a small coffee shop in Dublin. And the
Sure.
coffee shop was full, and she had a tray and she knew where to sit. And I said, come on and sit with me and my husband. You can have the opposite seat there. He's up getting. And we got talking. And she was telling me she was looking for a place to stay because she was going to be working in the Chester Beatty Library,
Mm.
restoring old Egyptian manuscripts. And then produces and it was her boyfriend, Stevie, at the time. And I said, we're absolutely looking for a guy like that. And he was super nervous about joining us, right? Because he didn't know us.
Mm.
So then we got him over, and he started off as a software developer. And what I quickly knew, the CTO at the time, if there was anything complex, like a massive workflow to be coded, this guy was given it. And he knew how to do everything better than every other software developer around him. And at
Wow.
this point, so then he got promoted up. And it's interesting, he had to go to UK because his wife got a big job in Cambridge. And then they went back to Belgium. So we've been with him on the journey when he was just boyfriend, girlfriend, to fiance. We went to their wedding, and he's
Oh,
now the
brilliant.
director. So it was fate in many ways that we met him, but he's been amazing ever since. He's just incredible.
Definitely. That goes back to that accidental entrepreneur. But that's not
Yes.
accident. That's just taking those opportunities, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And what from your dev team then? So if you look forward now, really, your TAMI, takes data and makes it valuable for people. So what sort of innovations do you see kind of coming forward? Because obviously data, new gold, et cetera, et cetera. What more value can you get out of data, do you think, for your clients and for your customers?
Oh, it's huge. So machine learning is the way to go, and AI, because what we can see is, let's say for a company, it's the 80-20 rule. 20% of their customers would drive 80% of the revenue, but they want to get similar or lookalikes.
Yeah.
With machine learning, we can profile the customers they have today and find all the lookalike customers in the market that they want.
Right.
And
Okay.
you could do all of that through machine learning and AI. Like an example of where works really well is industry classification. Because what we found is SIC codes and ACE codes are pretty awful when you get to the internet.
Yeah.
So we have developed a whole load of machine learning around industry classification. Because in the old days, a company had one industry or two industries. And in these days, many companies are doing retail, but they're also doing hospitality, or they're
Yeah.
also doing, something else. So we're able to flag all these businesses into the correct industries and sub-industries, and that's powerful.
Yeah, exactly. So it's, again, like you said, there's that value, isn't it? People like data, but they hate big pools of data, don't they? They like to say,
you don't need it.
yeah, I want to see the 50. I'm a salesperson. I want to see the 50 that I'm going to contact today, and I want them to be right. It goes back to that whole, the salesperson will chase down good leads and good information, won't they? They will not chase down 1,000. They'll just go to their black book or their own people that they always call, right?
Exactly. And so in our platform, it will nail down the lookalikes, or nail down the people that you should really be calling.
Sure. Fantastic. So, my last question really is, I think one of the questions we're asking to all our leaders that come on is, what have you learned in the last 18 months? TAMI's been going obviously pre-COVID and during COVID, and will expand post-COVID. What have you really learned as a leader yourself in your business?
I think one of the things I learned is don't put one person before a company. Do you know what I mean? Because sometimes we would try to protect and look after people as much as they can, but it can impact the rest of our organization. So what I've learned is that as a leader, we all have a duty towards each other in a company. We all have to do a job to the best of our ability, because the sum of all of us working together makes a great company. Whereas sometimes as a leader, we can feel sorry for somebody and feel like they're a really nice guy. What I've learned is you never hire really nice guys. You hire people that are competent first, and the really nice comes afterwards.
Yes,
because
it's a bonus.
It's a bonus.
Yeah.
Well, you kind of need to make sure they can do their job and they're amazing. And then layer on top of that, will they fit in with the team? Are they good people to work with?
Yep.
And I think that was a big learning for me over the last 2 years. It's like you really can't put one person before the company. The whole company needs to work together. You hire for competency, and then the niceness and the teamwork comes after.
Yeah, and I guess does that link into making the right decision in tough situations. When you said that obviously COVID has been quite good for you because obviously e-commerce has grown, but I guess it's been some tough times for a growing medium-sized business. It's tough for everyone.
Yeah, no, it is. And I think the big thing is when you start up, there's always the challenge of cash flow, because you're building a very expensive product and you've no brand in the market, so people don't know you. And so it's how do you manage your cash flow in the middle of your, emerging your brand in the market? Because you could throw the kitchen sink at marketing and then find out, but you don't have a good product market fit. So what I discovered was you need to manage your cash flow really tightly, and you need to get your product market fit really good. And my advice is go after a niche first, like we did with ecom. And now, like we are doing now, we're scaling across the world and we're doing everything. We're taking on Zoom, Info, Cognizant, the whole lot. Yeah. But you can't just spend loads of money on marketing and future sell your product if you can't actually close the product market gap in 3 months. If it's something you're not going to close for another 4 years, just go niche and be perfect in one niche, and then start moving across the world. Yeah, exactly. And that's how all the great businesses started, wasn't it? You got good at something, and then hopefully the market kind of grows around you, doesn't it? So it sounds like it's been a really interesting journey, Liz, and it sounds like it's going to be an even more interesting kind of future. So we very much enjoy working with TAMI, and we've obviously, as I said, working on these sales positions and marketing positions for you at the moment. So I can't more highly recommend that you reach out to Craig at GCS to kind of find out more details. But from my side, Liz, thank you very much for your time today. It's been great to kind of have you on board, and good luck in 2022. Thank you so much, David. It's been a pleasure.